Welcome to the Self-Storage Show, where I have conversations with my industry friends, talk with owners and vendors, and share tales about my management company, 3 Mile Storage. Let's go. Hey everyone, so I just finished putting together this new book, 3 Mile Storage Management, 3 Zones of Excellence. This is our framework for success in self-storage. Want a free copy? Okay, here's the deal. Book a strategy session with me. Together we're going to walk your business through the 3 Zones of Excellence framework. And I've done countless sessions like these over the years with many self-storage owners. I guarantee you that together, we're going to reveal some ways to increase your leads, rentals, and revenue. So go to 3milestorage.com and book your time today. Hi everyone, this is Jim Ross with the Self-Storage Show. Got another interview, part of this interview series I've been doing. It's been a lot of fun. Got a returning guest. Everyone knows this guy. This is Scott Zucker. How's it going, Scott?
Great, Jim. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to be back.
No, I love it. Anytime we can talk legal stuff, I'm like, nope, stay in your lane, Jim. Nope, we'll get Scott on when it comes to this kind of stuff. So that's why you're on. But if you don't mind, before we kind of get into that kind of stuff, again, you do everything legal, obviously with the SSA and the Self-Storage Legal Network and all that stuff. But I don't know, give us a little rundown about who you are, what you do, and storage, and we'll go from there.
Well, we're into year 36 of this adventure with the self-storage world. Years have gone by pretty fast. We were just joking about that the other day. I think my first SSA or ISS show was like 1989. And that's just crazy to think about, watching this industry grow so much in the last 30 years. Absolutely crazy. If you really, when people talk about first generation facilities, literally, boxes put up as temporary use, those were some of the first operators I was working with. And now you see these incredibly beautiful projects that are being built that will stay for a long time with a lot of incredible technology. And it's just a marvel to see what's happened in our industry in the last 30 years.
I had no idea you were involved that long.
Yeah.
My gosh.
It's amazing to me sometimes, but it's been fun. And boy, we've watched some companies grow, and grow, which is pretty cool.
Well, part of that growth, and things are changing, obviously. And it seems like the last couple of years, that's a lot of bit of the unmanned, remote, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. That model has kind of caught fire. And a lot of times, sites that don't pencil out, they're like, oh, it pencils out doing it this way. So I've seen it more and more of people going along with that model. But at the same time, it also kind of raises some, I don't know, legal compliance issues. And it's like, I don't know what to even say. So I'm like, that's why I got you on. Just to kind of raise some awareness of some of these things that might come up.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And actually, these days, it's probably the number one topic that I have is this transition from managed or manned facilities to unmanned properties.
Yeah.
This ability to do this. And certainly a lot of this was COVID related because we moved into operations from a remote contactless method. So we know that accelerated the transition to a unmanaged, I don't want to say unmanaged, unmanned property. Is the fact that even though the technology is there for you to operate that way, you still need what I would call the ordinary care that goes with being a landlord over your tenant's property or the tenant using your property. So even though you don't have a manager on site, you have to be cognizant of your responsibilities as a landlord to provide generally safety and security to the people that are coming onto your property. So even though you don't have a manager there who may otherwise be available if something goes on, you need to replace that with something that would satisfy your obligation to the visitor. So whether that be more cameras, whether it be gate access systems that have an ability for you to call a call center if there's an issue. You have to be thinking about these optionalities of what would be in replacement of the manager on site during your facility hours.
And I get that, because I think that's more of a customer service aspect of it. But is there a legal compliance?
Yeah. Because the legal compliance is that whereas you offer the opportunity for someone to come on your property with a general sense of safety and security. And maybe some of that was born by having a person on site to oversee that. Just because you don't have the person on site, you're still going to have to provide that ordinary care of safety and security to the visitor, whether it be the tenant, whether it be the tenant's guest who uses the code to access the property. Everyone other than what I would call the trespasser that comes on without any authority or permission onto the property. But otherwise, you have to be thinking about these things. You call it customer care. I would call it customer obligation, at least from the legal point of view. I mean, the last thing I want to see is more premises liability cases pop up because managers aren't on site and something happens to a tenant and there's no one to physically get assistance from. So again, having these tremendous camera systems that are out there to replace the person on site is a great solution. I know people are spending a lot of money and using that technology replacement pretty well. Otherwise, a mobile app that you could call a call center and have somebody available, I think is pretty important as well.
Yeah, it's a low hanging fruit when it comes to when you come onto our property. It's when I take over management of a property, frankly, and 9 times out of 10, the remote. That's just kind of the way it's been lately. It's going to, and I walk myself through like I'm a customer and just going through that with the gate. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm putting the gate. Are you able to track that? All right, cool. Check that. Looking at the cameras. I'm like, where are the cameras? Camera placement. We need extra cameras. If something does happen, it's kind of funny when things do happen. Like, since often in the past used to be, well, we have footage, I think, or they do, it's all grainy and it's just terrible. So it's like, you got to put some thought into this and actually put some money into this. If you're replacing your managers, I get it. Sometimes I think they just see that line item of payroll. I'm like, all right, cool. Look how much money I'm saving. But you need to put that into, like you just said, with the security. You got to, and it's not like, at least you do it once. It's not an ongoing thing. It's not going to be every single month you got to do that. But you got to put some money into it, pony some money up to the security to get it up to standards, because they've come a long ways in just a few short years, it seems like.
Yeah. But I think it's great. I don't want to scare people to the opportunity to transfer their properties in that method. I mean, the availability of kiosks and mobile apps and all the applications of virtual assistants, all the things that you see now with is really cool. The ability for payment applications to transact business, the forms online, the forms electronically, all that is great. I think it protects both the landlord and the tenant tremendously by having these systems in place. Creates a lot of commonality in how the process works when you use electronic systems. We're much better at getting our leases signed because you have to go through the electronic process of executing a lease, and a lot of these systems won't allow the access until the lease is signed. So that helps a lot. Yeah. There's consistency in the messaging of what the tenant is getting when they rent a unit, because the information provided them is consistent to all potential prospective tenants. So there's no question of, oh, the manager promised me that, or the manager promised me that. It's black and white with the electronic systems that are in place. So I find that to be pretty encouraging too, because it takes a lot of the risk out of what someone said to someone, allegedly said to someone, and that used to be an issue that we face a lot.
Yeah, again, we've been around the block a few times in storage, and it wasn't that long ago. It was so much of a he said, she said, or like, well, show me the email, or show me, or it was a phone call. Well, now, like you just said, there's a digital footprint for all this when it comes to your lease and your agreement, and here's your gate code, and here's your Da Vinci code, or whatever it be. You have that flow of everything, like I said, in black and white. So that part I'm grateful for, because it assures me that things are being done, but are things being done right? That kind of makes me lead to like contract stuff.
Well, that's always the issue, is you're hoping people doing it right. I have to say, I've been to some of the state meetings recently where I've presented to audiences, and I'm presenting what I would consider to be like standard legal compliance for operations. I do it in some recent groups. I've done it as a test and a quiz to operators, and they've been answering wrong. And so my response to that is that I still have a job to do in this industry because people still don't know the rules. And it's not easy. Look, the statutory compliance and these contract compliance issues that are part of the law, or part of what we call common law, which is case decisions that have come out about the law, are complicated. I mean, there wouldn't be a position for a lawyer if it was so easy. So there's, somebody said somewhere that you needed to go to law school to understand all this. But the compliance piece is so important, because what I would say to an operator that fails to meet the requirements of the codes is it's something called per se violation. If you fail to meet a requirement of the statute, you violated the law. You can't get around it by saying, well, I did this, or I talked to them about that. It's you have to follow these steps, and whether it's things that have to be in your contract or how you process your lien, the law is the law is the law. So, there are elements to the law, of course. Every situation is a little bit different, but I need folks to make sure they're following the law.
Yeah, I think you have job security. That's not going anywhere. Guess Chat GPT might have taken so many people's jobs, but I think you're still okay. I think you're still okay.
Yes.
What is
that darn Chat GPT? I don't know what to do with that. It's certainly out there and will affect our whole AI world is going to be affected. But I don't even remember that TV show where it was like a bot head answering questions. I can't remember the TV show, but here we are now. I mean, I could be AI answering your questions.
Next time, we'll do a part 2. We'll do the AI version of Scott coming on.
Awesome. Well, I can tell you the AI version would be younger.
Get some sideburns going.
A whole different look. Yeah.
Anyway, when it comes to the the agreements and doing these kind of remote facilities, do they need to be updating their agreements and talking about that?
Yes. So that's a great point. You have to keep your rental agreement in line with your operations. That's always the case. I mean, as a matter of fact, I ask operators when they ask me to update their rental agreements, I always say, like, so what are you doing differently? What have you upgraded? What have you changed? Anything new that has to be reflected in your rental agreement? Certainly, if you're an unmanned property, that has to be reflected in your rental agreements. What if you've used a Bluetooth locking system? You've changed your locking system. That needs to be addressed in your system. You have other services that you're offering at your facility, needs to be added to your rental agreement. So they have to be in line, operations and the contract. So that's one of the things. I'm so glad you brought that up, is because that needs to be something that operators are thinking about as they move ahead with this technology, to make sure that they're not using an old rental agreement, because it may conflict with what they're actually doing at their properties.
I brought that up because I think I need to update my agreements. Because seriously, I'm putting myself in the owner's shoes and all that, and I see it so often. They're like, "Oh, I got an agreement." They probably looked at it 10 years ago. Frankly, it's like you got to update. Not only you have to update the agreement for all the liens, all that kind of fun jazz, and new verbiage that's come out that you got to put in there, but like you just said, you have to match your operational procedures as well.
Well, I'll tell you
that's not being done.
Yeah, no, and I'll add to that. We learned a lot about personal behavior during COVID, how tenants behave and maybe don't behave, and rental agreements were not prepared to address tenant conduct the way that we had a lot of calls and emails and lawsuits about tenants that were loitering on the property, defacing the property, misbehaving on the property. And what did that mean for the operator who no longer wanted that tenant on their property? So we've always come from a perspective of tenant can use the space unless they're not paying the rent. Not tenant shouldn't be able to use the space if they're behaving badly on my property. So the transition from monetary default to non-monetary default has been a big issue in our industry. We have tenants behaving badly that need to be removed from a self-storage facility, from the use of the self-storage facility. And rental agreements didn't really address that. They addressed if they don't pay, what my rights are, but not if the tenant behave badly, what my rights are. So that the rental agreements have been updated to address tenant conduct as well. And we, unfortunately, we just saw a lot of that in the, what I'd call the COVID years. We learned a lot of lessons about how people use self-storage and abuse self-storage.
Wow. Okay. We go do a whole series with you, just talk about these case studies and things like that. Because I'm serious, because it doesn't come up a whole lot, at least people talking about. There might be, lawsuits and it happened to this one guy, but if it's happened to one person, we can probably give you 1,000 other cases where it's that same thing is happening that it needs to be aware of.
Well, I'll tell you, we try to update operators regularly with the cases that we're seeing against self-storage operators, because I think there is a general consensus of, if it happens to me, it could happen to you.
Yeah.
So a lot of my experience with the sort of the down and dirty dispute side of self-storage has been educational to other operators. So we do counsel calls a lot to let people know what's going on in the industry, to make sure that they are thinking about these issues in their own operations and can protect themselves.
Well, again, that's why we're doing this. I mean, it's
exactly. It's a public service, Jim. That's what you're doing. I love it.
Public service. That's what it is. I always like to think of things like in the top three. That's just the way my mind works. So if people that are going through this and they're changing their operations to unmanned, remote operations. So first we go going through the security, making sure that that's up to snuff, to kind of replace the on-site manager, making sure agreement is updated to reflect your operations, things like that. If you had to squeeze in one more thing, what would it be?
Technology, contract. I mean, this kind of goes with it, but it's sometimes missed to me, is internal training of your staff, because now you don't have the external manager that gets the sort of boots on the ground issue with the tenant. Now your problems, every time you have a problem, it's going to come in-house immediately. So whether your call center folks are trained to address these issues, whereas before your on-site manager was trained for this, your call center, even your internal management staff, to address these issues from a sort of virtual point of view is different when you're not used to dealing with conflict internally. You have to be trained for it. So I'd say that you can't forget the training part of all this as well. So you just like you said, you update your technology, you update your rental agreements based upon the operations. Now you're talking about a double check for your business to make sure you're prepared internally to deal with the operational issues, that you're aware and updated your own systems to deal with these issues.
Yeah, that brings up, again, it's kind of, on a personal note, when I've been doing this, when it comes to the call center, it's like a whole nother policy and procedures thing you have to write when it comes to dealing with the call center. Something like this comes up of documentation and what can you give over the phone and what can you take over the phone. There's a lot of legal ramifications when it comes to that. That's a whole nother aspect of this that doesn't really talk to people.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of enjoy what I do, because every day there's sort of a new issue. We had a call center issue come up just the other day about the legality of convenience fees for taking payments over the phone by credit card as compared to not charging a convenience fee. So you have a lot of operators that are now charging convenience fees for taking payments through the call center as compared to their credit card application directly. And there can be a fee associated with that. I have no problem with charging convenience fee as long as the tenant knows that the fee will be charged in advance of it being charged and they've consented to that. Now, I'd love to see that as part of the rental agreement, if that's a business term that is occurring at your facility. But if it's not in the rental agreement and you're adding it at the call center, there has to be communication and verification of the acceptance of the fee before it's charged. And whether that's done by a recording, which is common, that the call center calls are recorded and the consent is given verbally and those records are kept, or a text and confirmation of a fee, or an email and confirmation of a fee. But I don't want people coming to me after the fact saying, oh yeah, we charge fees and a tenant was unhappy with the fees. And I go, well, where is it in your rental agreement or in your operations that you charge the fees? And they go, well, no, we just charge the fee. It's like, no, you don't. You got to have a consent on a fee from your customer. And the same is true for you and I. You and I don't want to get fees that we don't consent to or know about. So that's the importance of just little things like that.
Yeah.
Little issues that come up on a daily basis about training and approvals.
But it's the little issues that can turn around and be a big issue in a hurry. That's the problem. That's why you have a job. There you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of, obviously what you do and all that, I'd hate myself if we didn't touch on this before we ended our little chat here. Can you talk a little bit about the self-storage legal network?
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we have had that now going on. I think we're past our 25th anniversary. It is a subscription service for Self-Storage Association direct national members as well as state association members, and they can pay a small subscription fee for unlimited emails of legal information questions that they can submit through the National Association. A panel of lawyers, myself included, will answer those questions. It's sort of a help desk of legal information for self-storage operators. Doesn't necessarily take the place of your lawyer, but can guide you in the right direction of things that you may need when the time arises. So we think it's been a good resource for a lot of operators to be part of the Self-Storage Legal Network. Again, it's available through the National Self-Storage Association. Hopefully your listeners and watchers are members, not members, but are on my list for my monthly newsletter, the Monthly Minute, which is also a legal update that I send out for free to subscribers for information of things that are happening in the industry. And that's just through my law firm that we send out that newsletter. So anybody interested in that could just reach out to me, and I guess you put my email out here somewhere, and I'm happy to add them to the newsletter list.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes, but if you don't mind, how do people want to do to reach out and get some more information? How do they get a hold of you?
My best way is by email, Scott, SCOTT, at WZ, Z for Zucker, WZlegal.com.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you again I know you're slammed. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. We'll have to do it again if you don't mind, because again, we could talk about this stuff all day long. But
there's a long list of legal things that everybody needs to be watching for. But this is a great reminder for folks to take a breather and look at their operations and make sure that they've sort of, as we all say, dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and keep their businesses as legal as they can, stay out of trouble, and keep making money by renting their units.
That'll be the title of this episode. Stay out of trouble.
I like it. That's a good one.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you. Great seeing you. Appreciate it.
Before we wrap up, just a quick reminder. Do you want to level up your storage game? Visit theselfstorageshow.com. Grab some high-value freebies, check out top vendor spotlights, and stay in the loop with our newsletter. Do you want to chat about becoming a client with 3 Mile Storage Management? All the info's there. Plus, if you've got a story to share, we're listening. Everything you need is at theselfstorageshow.com.